healing is tied to consciousness, and that if we can clear out our bodies and get people aligned, healing is what naturally happens. It's not something you need to make happen. And so what I teach in my practice, and I call it conscious oncology, is that there are 6 pillars that I teach. But any one of these pillars by themselves, my idea is that this is not the cure for cancer. These are things that we do to start to bring you back into balance, because with cancer, you've got an imbalance of increased toxicity in the body and lowered immune function. Because if you had good immune function and just a little bit of toxicity, the body takes care of cancer cells every day. Like, that is what we're designed to do.
This podcast is called Reconditioned because this is the place where you'll learn how to truly recondition your entire life. Where other wellness podcasts or platforms focus on one particular area of wellness or inner growth, Reconditioned is a one-stop shop for all of it, so that you can get all the information you need to heal and up-level the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual aspects of your life in one place. Because that's what I needed when I was healing from the arthritis I had from the age of 2 that left me disabled by 18. I got myself to a place of complete wellness after a very long journey of immersion into the world of healing, where I learned how to heal the whole self. My purpose now is about bringing that to you, and my Rise membership is an extension of that. For women who want to take their wellness and growth to the next level, there really is nothing out there like it. You'll be part of a global community of like-minded women with access to 14 modules that literally take you through everything you ever need to learn in order to bring your life to a place of balance and abundance. With group coaching calls with me, personalized support, community book club, and so much more. Rise becomes part of your life, your lifestyle, enabling you to thrive in the ways you always dreamed, with me right there beside you, championing you through your journey. It's not always open for enrollment, so if you're hearing this now, it's open and ready for you to enroll. Just go to the show notes for the link or visit laurenvakneen.co.uk/rise. Welcome back. You're listening to Reconditioned. I'm Lauren Vakneen and I'm so happy to have you here. And I'm just looking at myself on the screen right now and thinking how much I need a tan. I don't know if everyone else is feeling the same, but it's been such a long winter. If you're in the UK, you know what I mean. It's kind of, we're in the height of spring right now. And yet we're not feeling it. We're not feeling it quite yet. So like during the winter, it's like I know it's winter, so I don't expect myself to have a tan, and that's okay. And now I'm recording this mid-May and I'm like, I'm looking too pasty. I'm not enjoying this pastiness. So I'm hoping for sunshine. I hope you are all doing well, and I'm sure you've tuned in because you saw the title of this episode, and I am so looking forward to you listening to this, because this is where medicine is headed, people. This is where we need to be, and I feel like we are waking up. The world is waking up to what the meaning of medicine is, to what the meaning of healing is, and how we do that for ourselves. And Katie Deming is such an example for all of us of listening to your intuition, walking away from something when it doesn't feel right, however uncomfortable it is. She talks in this episode about how she left Western medicine after 20 years as a radiation oncologist. She was top of her game in oncology, and she left and everything came crumbling because of that, which I'll let her tell you about and you'll hear about. But it's just such an interesting story. And I'm so, I want to say, almost proud of her, as a woman, for stepping up to her truth and making space for this truth of healing and going out into the world and serving the collective in this incredible way. How many people do we know that have cancer? I mean, come on, it's everywhere because our lives are so toxic, and she's there helping people figure out how to actually heal, not how to mask, not how to give you a few more months, how to truly heal from a holistic perspective. And I am so impressed with her work, and I'm so excited about her work and just to see where it's going. So I know that you're going to get so much out of this episode. Share it with anyone you know who needs this right now. Cancer is everywhere, and it doesn't have to be. That's my ethos. Like, I truly don't believe that we have to be seeing these levels of cancer. We can be in a different place. We can bring ourselves to a different place. But as you know, if you are a regular listener here, that's up to us. It's up to us to take responsibility for our own well-being, to take ownership of our own well-being, to be responsible for it, for the well-being of our own health and our children's. It is up to us, right? And the issue that I have seen, the challenge with society that I witness, that I observe, is that we don't do nearly enough to prevent cancer. We kind of live the way we want to live, our lives of convenience. We eat what we want. We eat all the foods that we know cause cancer or contribute to cancer, or at least aid cancer cells in proliferating. And then we get shocked when we get a diagnosis. We're like, what? Why have I got cancer? Why have you not got cancer before that? You know, like, it is up to us. And I truly believe that every person has the ability to prevent cancer. And there are reasons why cancer comes up in us. And I also think everyone has the ability. It might not be in everyone's journey to go down that road, but everyone has the ability to heal. That is my personal feeling about it, in understanding now how cancer works. And this episode is going to be so expansive for everyone, not just people healing from cancer at the moment. So I'm looking forward to you listening to it. Make sure to share it with anyone you know this can support. And I think get a notebook and pen and listen to what Katie's talking about. And I will see you on the other side. Thank you for being here. Fun fact, humans take in more information in one day now than they did in their entire lives in the 1700s. No wonder we're overwhelmed. Our brains and bodies simply haven't evolved to manage this level of stress. And until that evolution happens, if we want to be well in mind and body, we need things that help alleviate this stress. For me, one of the key tools in my daily wellness toolkit that does this is the Sensate. And if you've been here a while, you'll know how genuinely obsessed I am with this product. It is a piece of health tech that fits in the palm of your hand, and it basically sends infrasonic waves through the chest to activate the vagus nerve and calm the autonomic nervous system while you listen to the specially composed audio within the app. I usually use the Sensate for 10 to 20 minutes before I sleep to reduce cortisol levels, calm my brainwave states from the hectic day, and send me into a deep sleep. Clients or friends of mine who have a Sensate have told me that their sleep has never been so good. People who usually struggle with sleep just wake up in the same position they went to sleep in. Everyone needs a Sensate, in my opinion, and I particularly recommend it to anyone who suffers from overwhelm or anxiety, and anyone who wants to deepen their meditation practice. And you can get £30 off the Sensate by visiting getsensate.com and using code Lauren30. That's GETSENSATE.com, Lauren30. Thank you so much to Sensate for supporting our mission here at Reconditioned. Katie Deming, the conscious oncologist, is a radiation oncologist, inventor, and TEDx speaker who is transcending the boundaries of conventional and integrative medicine to evolve the current paradigm of disease prevention, treatment, and healing. She blends conventional medicine with holistic practices and ancient wisdom to address the hidden roots of dis-ease and activate the body's innate capability to heal. Katie, I'm so happy to have you here.
Lauren, it's my pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, this is such a huge topic. And what's interesting is whenever you start looking into something and something comes into your sphere of consciousness, you see it everywhere. And thank God I'm not managing cancer, and no one in my family is, thank God. But based on what I do, I have a lot of clients who come to me who are healing from cancer, and it's always something I'm learning more, and I want to know more ways to help heal, to help people heal. And so many people come to me and say, I don't want to go down the conventional route, or this happened to me with the conventional route, or I'm scared, what are my options? And it's so amazing to have been connected to you by this divine intervention and this path, this shamanic path we're both on, which I feel was actually a very conscious thing that we've been connected. And yeah, so it's incredible. And I'm so excited for my audience to hear your story and what you do and how you serve. So let's just start where I always start, which is asking you, what have you done so far today to support your wellness?
Sure. Well, it's interesting because this morning, this interview is a little earlier than I normally start. So my normal routine that I do, I didn't do, but I fasted this morning. So, and then also I do meditation when I first wake up, and I did that as well.
Awesome. Amazing. Okay. So I always like to start with the background, and you were a radiation oncologist. Can you take us through kind of your training, what you were doing for work, so people really know, like, you were in this, kind of everything about your job and what you did and kind of what led you to this moment, and then we'll go into what you do now.
Sure. So I was a radiation oncologist for 20 years, and I did all of my training at Duke University, which is in the southern part of the United States, and didn't finish my training until I was 32 years old. So it's a long path to become a doctor, and then specifically radiation oncology was additional 5 years after medical school. So in my career, I have practiced as a radiation oncologist, and I've done actually a little bit of everything, but towards the latter 10 years of my career, I was specialized in women's health, so breast cancer and gynecologic cancers. But also I am interested in design, and I love designing products. So I'm an inventor and have designed products for women with breast cancer, but also like designing systems. So how to help people get the care that they needed. And so when I was in the Western system, I basically redesigned the whole cancer service line for a large healthcare organization that I was working for, and then led that. So end-to-end cancer care, from screening, prevention to diagnosis, treatment, through survivorship and end of life. And at the peak of my career, I had been nominated to be the national medical director for one of the largest healthcare organizations in the United States. And in that position, I would have been responsible for the prevention and treatment of cancer for 12 million Americans. So quite a big role. Ultimately, I didn't get that position. It came down, there were 6 of us nominated. It came down to me and another woman, and she received the position. And I knew when that happened, I knew that there was a reason, and I knew that whatever I was meant to build was not within the system, because immediately after that interview process ended, I was probably just within a couple weeks, I had what's known as a shared death experience. And a shared death experience, for your listeners who don't know what that is it's similar to a near-death experience, but it often happens to healthcare professionals or emergency personnel who are at the scene of a transition of a person. And what happens is that those emergency personnel or people who are at the scene experience something similar to a near-death experience. And so that happened to me, and I experienced the love and the just inexplicable beauty and light, and it changed me. And I had this sense before that event, so that was the fall of 2020. Starting in 2019, I had this sense that there was something wrong in medicine, but I couldn't put my finger on it, and it didn't make sense. Like I had this sense that I wasn't supposed to be practicing radiation oncology, but here I had spent hundreds of thousands of dollars and like my entire life on this education. And when I would have these conversations with my husband, he would say, well, maybe there's something wrong with you. If you can't be happy, you have everything someone else would want. You have a meaningful career. Your colleagues love you. Your patients love you. You know, make $500,000 a year. Maybe there's something wrong with you. And so I had kind of internalized that, like, maybe it's me, like maybe I'm never going to be happy. But after this event, I saw, oh, this is not healing. Like, the reason why I need to leave and the reason why I'm not supposed to be doing this is not actually how the body heals. I don't know, but the hard part is that I saw what wasn't right, which was what I was doing, but I had no idea what the answer was. I really didn't know, well, what is the answer? And that was not revealed to me in that experience. And so then I took several years and started researching what makes the body well, because everything I had been taught in medicine was about what is wrong with the body. Like, it's all pathophysiology. It's all looking at disease. And we're never taught, like, how do you actually create a body that's like optimally functioning? And for me, this was like the first place that I went. I was like, I just want to know what makes us well. And so ultimately studying that, started learning a whole bunch of things that I was never taught in medical school, and ultimately left Western medicine in the summer of 2022, which led to my divorce, and basically gave up everything. I just blew up my life because I knew from spending so much time around death as an oncologist, I'd spent a lot of time with people who are facing the end of their life. And one thing that I knew was that people who face the end of their life always say, I wish I had been true to myself. I wish I had done what I wanted to do and what I knew was right, and not listen to everyone else. And so I knew that if I didn't follow this, that at the end of my life, I would regret it. And so that is what really fueled me to blow everything up. And that's the story of me leaving and, really kind of letting go of that whole identity as a Western radiation oncologist.
It's such an amazing story. And what I love about it is that I'm sure it's been such a dark time for you. And at the same time, some of the most impactful work I do with women is through their energetic deaths. And when they're in that energetic death moment of, shoot, I got to shed everything. And I've been resisting this for so long, but the universe has literally given me no choice now. It's literally backed me into a corner until I don't have any choice but to give up this career I've spent my life building, this marriage that clearly isn't authentic to me, this friendship group. Like, sometimes it comes down to literally everything. And when you start shifting into this space of authenticity where it doesn't make sense to your logical mind, but the higher you, the you that chose to incarnate in this body and has a massive purpose and mission and dharma here, knows all of it. And that's the you that's guiding. But it's so freaking hard for the human us to navigate that. So I can only imagine that was like such a hard time for you.
Yes, I will say that it was terrifying just because I didn't know. I didn't know where. The one thing that I did know is that I am very resourceful and that I've always been successful, and that I knew that once I found my way, it would be okay. Like, I knew, and I also trusted that I was following my higher self. I was following the signs from the universe. And I really believe that when you do that, ultimately that is rewarded. It's the law of reciprocity of what you put out. And I was really doing this from like a very heart-centered place, right? But I'm not gonna lie, it was hard. And the other thing is that my kids, they heard things from their dad, like, your mom's gone off the deep end. And so my kids questioned me, and my kids were like, are we going to be okay? Are we going to have enough food? Are we going to, and all of this. And really, like, I was questioned by everyone all around me. And what's beautiful now, though, is just the other day on Mother's Day, I was having dinner with my girls. I have 3 children. My son's in college, and then I have 2 daughters who are at home, 18 and 14 years old. And they were telling me that, you have created such an example for us of
Oh,
being true to ourselves, that like nothing's going to stop you. Like it doesn't matter what happens, you're going to be who you are. And they were like, you're such a boss. And I was like, that's amazing to hear that from my teenagers. But it took 2 years of like them being like, Mom, you're crazy. Mom, we're not going to have enough money. And I was just like, no, it's going to be okay. But you have to walk through it, you know, and it really is the dark night of the soul. It's called that for a reason, because it's dark. And so for me, I kept coming back to, I need to be true to myself. And then my biggest fear in life is getting to the end of my life and regretting that I didn't take those courageous, bold steps to be the fullest version of myself. So it was rough, but I feel happy to, I'm still emerging, right? Because whenever you're building something new, it takes time and all of that.
so sorry to interrupt the episode, but this really is a public health service announcement. If you're trying to improve or optimize your health, you might be missing the crucial ingredient that most people don't realize they need. You see, it's not vitamin D you need to be supplementing. The mineral we are most lacking and need so much more of in order to be able to synthesize that vitamin D from the sun is copper. Without copper, which gives us retinol, we literally cannot absorb the fat-soluble vitamins A, D, and K. And the iron in our bodies is not distributed effectively because copper is what transports iron around the blood. So it's not that we're anemic, it's that we are low in copper. Without adequate absorption of all these minerals, your health can never be optimal. So many people I've worked with feel like they've tried everything, and simply introducing Recuperate IQ, which is a very specific formulation of copper and other ingredients, improved their health within weeks. It's formulated by Morley Robbins, who created the root cause protocol that hundreds of thousands of people around the world have healed as a result of. I've personally been doing it for 8 years. This supplement is finally available in the UK after years of me trying to get hold of it, and you can now get it at yourhealthbasket.co.uk using code LaurenV10 for a 10% discount. That's yourhealthbasket.co.uk and code LaurenV10. I love what your daughter said to you. I mean, that's the dream for every parent, right? And I feel like so much of this self-development work and inner growth work is, helps us become better parents because it's all about what we're modeling. So the fact that they even recognized, wow, you're modeling for us what it means to operate from a place of authenticity is so powerful. Like I truly hope my kids one day, because my kids have never seen anything different. So I don't know if they're going to be the kids that rebel against it, because they're like, oh, you freaking witch, like, for God's sake. And like, I don't like, they love what I do now, but they're 5 and 8, and I don't know if they're going to be those teenagers who are like, yeah, F you, I don't want to have any part in this, or if they're just going to love it because they can see what it's done for them and how healthy they are compared to people they know. And, but you never know, but like you made the change. So they got to see that contrast. And I think that's just such an empowering message to anyone listening who is maybe in that space of knowing that they need to make a change, but they're scared about how it will impact their kids, how it will impact their family life. Like you were like, okay, so it's going to cause a divorce, and that's what needs to happen. I just feel like you're so inspirational.
Thank you. And I will say that it's mixed with teenagers. It's always going to be mixed. So there's the days where they're like, okay, mom's crazy, but on those lucid moments like Mother's Day, they come through with, those beautiful truths, and also my daughter said to me, this was like a year ago, she was 17 at the time. And she was like, she does so many things. She's, on some semi-professional hip hop dance team and blah, 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 all these things. And she was super burnt out. And I was like, well, drop something, like drop one of your classes. Like she was taking all these honors classes. I'm like, drop one of the honors, or, let's look at what you can drop. And then she turned around and she looked at me and she's like, I'm not going to wait until I'm 40 something to finally be happy like you did. And I was like, oh yes. I'm like, I am so happy you just said that. Absolutely. That's why right now you start making those changes and do those little things, because you don't have to wait until you're 40 something years old to finally be happy. So they're always watching, for good or bad. It's like we have to be careful
100%.
about what we're modeling, because they're like sponges.
100%. So before we go into what you're doing now in the conscious oncologist work, I'm just interested because you said, you knew your higher self and you were following what where the universe was guiding you. Were you always into spirituality? Did you always have a connection to it? Like, where did that come in? Because it is rare for doctors and from my experience, oncologists and, to kind of use even that terminology.
Sure. Well, I think that I've always been a seeker, but not in a very kind of measured way because of my background. And for me, I was raised Catholic, very strict Catholic, but also a very dysfunctional family. And so what I saw was people misbehaving and not living the values that were, portrayed by the church. But then if you just went and said your confessions, then everything was fine. And I really didn't like that. And my mom was very religious, and she made me go through all of the sacraments for the Catholic Church, but the final one is confirmation at age 15. And when she made me do that, when actually that is something that is supposed to be the choice of the child or teenager, I was pissed. And I was like, I am never going to church again after this. I will do this confirmation because this is what you want me to do. But after this, I am not having anything to do with the church. And so from the time I was 15 until I was about 20, maybe 21 at this point, I basically just did not talk to God, I just literally cut off from it. And when I was 21, I think is somewhere around there, my sister, who's older than me, she was 23 at the time, her best friend was dying of a pineal blastoma, and that's not an accident either. That the type of tumor that she died of was from a pineal tumor, just the seat of the soul. But basically what happened was my sister called me just desperate one night, and she said, "You have to pray for Lisa." And I got off the phone with her and I just started sobbing, and I was like, oh my gosh, how can I pray to a God that I haven't thanked? I haven't been in communication and thanking for everything that I have in my life. How could I possibly now ask this being or whatever it is to help my sister's best friend? And I wanted desperately to help her. And so that night I said, God, I don't know what's true. The Catholic Church really screwed up my mind around you, but please, I'm open. And if you show me the way, I will follow. And that very next morning, I always ran. And I was living in Santa Barbara at the time because that's where I went to undergrad. And I would always go to this coffee shop at the end of my run. And as I was going to the coffee shop, I saw something on the sidewalk. And I was like, you know what, if that's there when I come back, I'm going to go look at what it is. And so sure enough, it was there when I came back from getting my coffee. And it was Houston Smith's Religions of the World. And there was a chapter on all different major religions. And so it started me on my path for a month at a time, I would go to a different temple or church or synagogue to explore all the different, religions, and really starting to explore spirituality. Mm-hmm. But it was more like I was searching for the truth, but I didn't know what it was. And I've always been kind of this way, seeking and looking, but not really finding the path that was what felt right for me. So I would say I've always been a seeker, but I had never been really open to metaphysical stuff. I definitely was just a straight up 3D doctor, to be honest. All of this was very new. And that's one of the reasons why when the shared death experience happened, I was like, what's going on? And it opened gifts for me that I didn't know what to do with.
Are you able to talk about that experience?
Sure. Yeah. So what's interesting about this, and I'll share a little bit more in your, here than I do kind of on my podcast, but What had happened was that I had entered into a coaching group that, unbeknownst to me, the energy had been held by a very elevated person and being, which is how you and I are connected now. But basically, I had entered into this group, and I didn't know that the frequency of that group was being held by someone who holds a very high frequency. And what happened is that the program hadn't even started. It was like the week before it was starting, and we were just going to come in and introduce ourselves. So I had come into the group and maybe done an introduction. But that same week, a woman that I knew from previous work that I had done on trauma, so I have a lot of childhood trauma that I had worked through. And I had worked with a therapist who now had kind of moved into doing more like shamanic drumming and that kind of thing. But I had seen her, as a client. And she reached out to me and she said, this is going to be the weirdest message ever. She said, but I have to reach out to you because the messages just won't stop. And she said, Spirit is telling me that you have big power and that I'm supposed to help you. And I was like, what? I was like, I don't know. And even though I was very like traditional, I was also open. So I'm like, okay, what is Spirit telling you? And like, what are we supposed to do? And she's like, I don't know. And she said, but why don't you come over and we'll just do a drumming ceremony and see what comes through. So we did that. And during the ceremony, she had me put things from her studio on the altar. And one thing that was kind of calling to me was this very large apophyllite stone. It's like, you can't see my hands, but it's like, somewhere between 20 and 50 pounds, this like giant stone. She said, that's so interesting that you chose that stone because that's actually the stone that taught me how to charge my hands for Reiki. So anyway, we did this ceremony and all I remember was flying on an eagle, and it didn't mean anything to me, but basically it was like an interesting experience. And then I went home that night. But when I left, she said, the stone, this apophyllite stone wants to go with you. And I was like, this thing, it's like huge. I was like, what am I supposed to do with? She's like, I don't know. And she said, but it wants to go with you. So I was like, okay. So I took the stone home, and that night, and there was no drugs involved. So there's no plant medicine. This was like literally just drumming. And that night, the stone was calling to me. Like it was like, come down and put your hands on me and meditate. And so I did that, and I had a meditation practice. So I had been meditating, but I went down and I sat with the stone, and immediately a woman's voice came and started talking to me. And she was saying, I can't let go, but it's not because of me, it's because of them. And instinctively, I knew she was dying. I knew she was talking about her friends or family. And so I just started talking to her like I would talk to a patient that I was with who was transitioning. And so I told her, I said, there's no rush. You're going to know when it's time, and I'll stay with you. And so I did, and I stayed with her. And I don't know, the meditation was probably somewhere between 35 and 40 minutes. And at some point in the meditation, I saw who this was. Mm-hmm. And it was a woman that I was connected with, but I didn't know. So she was the best friend. Her name was Misty. And Misty was best friends with one of my colleagues. And I had been helping my colleague support Misty, who was dying of breast cancer. She was in her early 30s and had breast cancer. And I was helping my colleague make sure her wishes could be met, and that also that to coach my friend through like the loss of a best friend when you're 30 years old, which is just not normal, right? So I had been coaching her. So we were entangled in this way. And so I saw that it was her. And then at some point during the meditation, I started to feel a pulling, and I could tell that her soul was starting to leave her body. And I could feel just this pulling and this tugging. And then there was this like tension. And all of a sudden I heard pop, pop, pop. Like strings popping. And as that happened, the sky opened up, and I was just engulfed by the brightest light I've ever experienced in this lifetime, and just love and light that's ineffable. There's no words. I don't have words for it. But Misty gasped and said, oh my gosh, I never had to worry. It's so beautiful. And then she was gone. Like she was gone. And then I was in this space.
But I'm getting chills.
Yeah, and I had no idea what was going on. And I have no idea how long I was there because time doesn't exist in that space. And so I was there for some period of time, and then I came out and I was like, what just happened? I was like, did I make that up? That was so weird. Like, I have no idea what that was. And so I went to bed. I didn't tell my husband. I hadn't done any drugs. I thought he would for sure think like, you're crazy. Like, what did you do? Did you do drugs today or something? And I was like, no. So I went to sleep. And then when I woke up to a text from my colleague. And it was basically thanking me for helping her with Misty, and that Misty had died the night before.
Oh my God.
And so I was like, okay, I know this is a weird question, but what time did she die? And it turned out that she was pronounced dead within minutes of the time that I had been in meditation with her.
Oh my God.
And it took me time to even share with my friend, what had happened, because I was like, she's probably going to just think I'm crazy. But ultimately it was comforting for them, obviously, to like know that she was like, oh my gosh, I never had to worry. And it was so beautiful. And they later told me, the family, that Misty had been holding on for like 5 days. She just would not die. She was just like ready. Her body was ready, but she had this just will that she was holding on. And then all of a sudden that evening, she just calmed down. And they had made the assumption that maybe a relative that had passed before had come to get her and had helped her make that transition. But they were like, okay, well, now we know it wasn't someone from the other side, it was you. And I think she found me because we were entangled, and I was opened from having done that drumming journey, that, and then getting the confirmation the next morning was really important. I think, that was not an accident to like, let me know this is real. This really did happen. Because I think I would have brushed it away and just been like, I don't know what that was.
I mean, I literally got chills when she went, when you said that she transitioned, and what she said when, I never needed to worry. Unbelievable. So what's always interesting for me is when people are kind of very much in the Western medicine world, and or have never kind of been immersed in spirituality, there's these big moments of like these big life-changing moments, and I'm almost jealous I've never had those big, like I was raised with spirituality, so I want one of those big moments. And I just find it so incredible, because it was like your confirmation of where you needed to be and how much deeper you needed to go into this journey, like where you're serving, I guess. So then what happened after that? Was that kind of like the catalyst, and then that linked back in with the group that you were in, the coaching group?
Yeah, well, actually, and one thing I want to say, because I had never thought about this, but you just brought this up, is how we both deal with people who have illness, and illness is an awakening event, right? And that, like, if people are paying attention earlier, they hear the like soft whisper or the like gentle knock, but like some people need to be like hit
the slap on the face,
yeah, like the big bomb go off, like when someone has cancer or like another major illness. But I think with spirituality and the awakening, it's the same thing. So you didn't need the big like, knock you over with this giant event, because you were listening to the nudges, you were listening to those whispers. But I wasn't, because I was so conditioned into a system that taught me the opposite of that, that I like everything is like materialistic and this 3D and all of that. So I think that it's a good thing that you haven't had to have these like giant, and I've had multiple of these just huge events, because I guess something's like, hello, lady, wake up, this is not what this is about.
I literally use that exact terminology with clients and also friends. I'm like, okay, so the universe kind of knocked on your door and you were like, no, go away, universe, I'm not going to listen. And then the universe started banging your door down. You were like, no. Then the universe kind of kicked you in the shin and you were like, maybe I'll do something about it, but actually it's not that uncomfortable yet, so I'm not going to. And then the universe slaps you around the face and pushes you over and knocks you over the head, and you're like, maybe I should listen now. And actually then you're just left without a choice, and you just have to listen because you literally don't have a choice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like the energetic death, it's exactly the same thing.
Exactly. So I think I lost track of what the question was.
So then was that the
What happened
catalyst?
after that? Yeah. So, okay. So then I was in this group and I just became very sensitive to energy. And that event, now since that happened, I've done a lot of, soul searching and then also researching about what happens when someone has a near-death experience. And reading David Hawkins' work, his book Power versus Force was really helpful for me, because in there he talks about the levels of consciousness and how emotions are tied to frequency.
I love his work. I use it all the time. I use it as a reference, the scale of consciousness.
Yeah, so it's so beautiful. And his explanation of near-death experiences is that when you have a near-death experience, you are bathed with these very high frequencies up in the peace and enlightened range, that when you come back, you're changed. And that is literally how I felt. I came back and I was just different, and I couldn't explain it, but it was like my antenna was tuned. And all of a sudden I started receiving more information. I, realized that whatever I did with Misty is actually something that I can do. And so I did that with not very many patients, but like when I was up against the wall and, knew I could help, offered that. And so I've helped, a couple of my patients transition, and then I helped my mom transition. So that opened up for me. And just what happened is that I started to just tune to truth. And I don't think that there's like truth with a capital T. I'm just saying like things that resonated and felt true for me. I started to know what wasn't for me, and started to be attracted to the things that really were aligned and felt true to me. And so that was a very different way of operating in the world. I had been very scientific minded, just cramming my brain with tons and tons of information. And now I switched to following where my intuition was guiding me. And then when I would come upon something, I'd use my scientific background to dig into it, to figure out, is this legit, that kind of thing. So
the perfect combination.
Yeah, so the complete flip of the way I had been doing things, but probably it is the way that I think we should be taught to live our lives, is using our intuition first. So it really just opened me. And then, then there was like the whole process of learning, like, what do I do with all of this? And what does it mean? And obviously it led to, a lot of change in my life. My husband did not understand it and really could not hang with everything that was opening for me. And so there was a lot of things that happened after that. And that's why it took me some time to really make the big transitions and decide where I was heading.
One of the holistic living challenges I spent years researching and trying to figure out was how to keep teeth healthy without fluoride, and which fluoride-free natural toothpaste to use. I've found a few over the years that I've liked, but I finally found a brand that does a toothpaste that me and my husband love, and a kids one that not only has all the perfect ingredients to keep their teeth and gums healthy naturally, but that they love. The toothpastes are by Wellness, which is the brand created by Katie Wells, aka Wellness Mama, who we love here at Reconditioned. I'm such a fan of these toothpastes, and I would love you to give them a go. And no, they're not as cheap as Colgate, and for good reason. But you can get 10% off by visiting health.com/LaurenV10. That's health with an F, health.com/LaurenV10. And that will apply a 10% discount to anything in your basket, not just wellness products. Please report back to me and let me know how you find these toothpastes. And I love that. For me, that's the perfect balance of the masculine and feminine. I feel like some people will be too far over onto that scientific and just the research and the data and the statistics, and that doesn't work. It doesn't get you very far. And equally, I know people who are just about the intuition and just about the, I'm just going to feel into it. And those people aren't grounded enough. And what I've learned is that you can be as spiritual as you want, but you've chosen to incarnate here in a human body for a reason. That human body comes with a brain, and it comes with the necessity to navigate life on planet Earth, which comes with a lot of necessity to be able to be grounded and to research and to, be able to focus and concentrate. And that's why I think brain health is so important. It's why I take my cognitive function so seriously, and why I think that cognitive function is a part of connecting more deeply with your spirituality. Because like like when this shamanic journey we're both on, we get given information. It's like, feel into it. But then I'll go away and I'll do the 3D digging of the researching, what else can I learn about this from a 3D perspective? Can I Google this? Like, will anything come up about this that I can look into more? Or so I love that blend of the masculine and feminine. And it seems like it just all happens so beautifully right at the perfect time for you to be able to be in that space, to actually be able to manage all of that.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go to the juicy part that I know people, not that wasn't juicy, but people are probably listening because they want to hear about holistic cancer care. So how did that kind of happen for you, and where are you at with it now? And how does that kind of what are you teaching? Like, how are you serving?
Sure. Well, it's evolving, and I think it will always evolve. This is one of the beautiful things of now being on this path and realizing, like, when you think you know it all, like, you're actually got everything wrong. So it's like, I know this will continue to evolve. But what my understanding of healing since having this experience is that healing is tied to consciousness, and that if we can clear out our bodies and get people aligned, healing is what naturally happens. It's not something you need to make happen. And so what I teach in my practice, and I call it conscious oncology, is that there are 6 pillars that I teach. But any one of these pillars by themselves, my idea is that this is not the cure for cancer. These are things that we do to start to bring you back into balance, because with cancer, you've got an imbalance of increased toxicity in the body and lowered immune function. Because if you had good immune function and just a little bit of toxicity, the body takes care of cancer cells every day. Like, that is what we're designed to do. And so we've gotten out of balance. And so through these 6 pillars, which are diet and supplementation, water, physical practices like grounding, sunlight, red light, sauna, that kind of work, emotional processing and release, power of mind, and spirituality. And basically what I'm teaching people is how to clean themselves out to get clear enough to allow the healing to happen, which is natural and is divine. And it is what we're designed to do, but most of us are blocked. We're too inflamed. We've got, we've been eating and living and taking in toxins, not only physical toxins, but emotional toxins and mental toxins, like all of these things that are in our society today. And so teaching people, number one, about that, like the importance of really learning how to be discerning about the nourishment of your body, and also about detoxification and really ridding your body of those toxins. And so basically I walk people through a process of helping to get them clean so that then the healing can occur. And also I do support people who are getting conventional therapy to help them mitigate the effects on their immune system, and also do some of the work that they need to be doing so that when they finish, then they can do the deeper work of boosting their immune system and detoxifying and all of that. But when you're in treatment, there's, it's hard because their bodies are stressed from all of that. So that is my current practice.
And so how does it work in terms of, is it a certain amount of sessions, or is it an online course? Like, how, for people interested, how does it actually work? How do people work with you?
So I see consults. That's the best way for people to start with me, where I do a consultation and we can focus on making treatment decisions about what they want to do, or looking at root cause, like what are some of the things that have contributed to becoming sick. And I know that my philosophy aligns with yours, and that I don't think that it's one thing. It's many things that have come together. And so one thing is not going to solve your health issues, including cancer. But so we do a consultation, and then if it's a right fit, then I'll offer people the option to work with me. But I have a very small practice, so I only work with 10 clients at a time, and we work for 12 weeks. I meet with them every other week, also have text support so that they can be messaging me and getting information kind of in real time. And that is my current offering. But my goal is to eventually have a membership where I can teach this, and people with cancer can connect with each other, you know, and do my protocol in a group setting. But my practice is relatively new. I launched in October of 2023. And so I really wanted to focus on the one-to-one, because healing is individual, right? For everyone, it's different. And so that is the work that I'm doing currently.
And it might be new, but people are hearing about you. I mean, I know you, and yet I'm hearing about you from people who don't know that I know you. I told you I was walking with someone last week who's healing from cancer at the moment, and someone put her in touch with me, and she was like, you know, there's this woman, Katie Deming, and I need to speak to her. And I was like, yeah, you do need to speak to her. And then I listened to Kelly Gore's podcast with someone that healed from cancer, and she was talking about you and how you were supporting her. So, you know, I think when something is aligned, and it's as if like everything in your life happened to get you to this moment right here, and it's just all going to align beautifully for you to be able to support people, because this is what people are looking for. I mean, I meet people every day who are looking for exactly what you do. A question I have for you is, how does it work from like a clinical legal perspective? Are you still working as a doctor, or are you not allowed to do that?
Well, my practice, to use your medical license, the things that are covered under a medical license are diagnosis and prescription pharmaceuticals, neither of which I do. So I don't diagnose cancer. People come to me already with a diagnosis, or if they want to prevent. So I don't do diagnosis, and I don't treat with any pharmaceuticals. So my current practice is actually all done under a coaching contract. But of course, I'm bringing 20 years of expertise,
of course, yeah,
of, you know, medicine, and then all of that, but I'm not using my medical license currently. Eventually I will have a physical practice, and I will, you know, use that, but to prescribe, you know, I won't be prescribing traditional pharmaceuticals, that's for sure. But I may use my license in that way.
Because just kind of knowing how the medical world works, from my experience of a lifetime of this, you know, I just wonder how they feel about it, and are they gonna, you know, want you to use your license on it. But the great thing is that the kind of people coming to you don't care about that. So it's again, it's another paradigm shift and another structure we need to dismantle, about feeling like we need someone to have a medical license in order to be able to. I mean, like you say, you've got the decades of experience, and it's more about that. I was just intrigued in like how it works, you know, just from a personal perspective.
That I'm not using it, because if I was using it, then I become a target.
100%.
They do not like this.
That was kind of why I was asking, but I didn't want to say that, because I didn't want to put that like.
No, for sure I'm a target. No, absolutely. I've already had things happen to me. Like, I know you had your TED Talk suppressed. I had my TED Talk. I did a TEDx talk in 2022. And within the first 3 weeks, it had something like 10,000 views. And it was actually ahead of anyone else in my event. And then suddenly the numbers started going backwards. So it went down to like, I think it was up at 11, and then it went down to 8,000, and it just sat there
go down.
At 8,000 for like 6 months. It sat there. And so, you know, there are people who don't want this information to be seen. And even that wasn't even a controversial. I wasn't even out there yet. I was talking about language in cancer, which I feel like is pretty benign, but absolutely.
But it's like about what you're doing. So it's like, you know, and it was the same with mine. It was, we can't let this get out there, because if people know she's healed without conventional medicine, then, oh, you know, what are we going to do if we can't promote all these drugs? And it was, it was a really interesting time, because now it's like, again, it put me in this like little mini energetic death at the time, because obviously it's not the end of the world and there's far bigger things going on. But I think I had to go through that. I've always been outside of the mainstream, right? I've never tried to reach the mainstream because I can't, because they won't let me, right? I've been shadow banned on Instagram so many times. Like I'm, I'd be up to like 100,000 followers or something by now, but they shadow ban me. So like, whatever, I don't care. I would just want to reach the people who want to hear. The sad thing about that is that a lot of the people we're preaching to the choir, right? And it's the people who aren't going to have access to what we're speaking about that are the people that need to hear it. But what it kind of taught me was, from a spiritual perspective, that's not always our job to fight against the system. It's our job to serve and give our gifts in the best way we can, and give them where they're wanted, and wherever they're meant to get to from there is where they're meant to get to. And from that place of non-resistance, that losing that striving energy, that resistance energy, that desperation, I have to serve and I have to reach and I have to, like, we'll reach who we're meant to reach. And it gave me that permission almost to be like, I'm actually so, and people will think I'm just saying it because I didn't get my TED talk up on TED's YouTube, but I genuinely am in this place now where I'm like, thank God I'm not affiliated with that organization, who I've since done a lot of digging on and know exactly who they're affiliated with and exactly what kind of content they're publishing. And that's cool. I'm not there for that, So it's, we're going to be opposed. But we're going to find the right people, and the right people are going to find your work. And I'm so excited to see how this unfolds for you. So what are the next steps? So at the moment, you're just focused on the practice and on helping the 10 people at a time that come to you, and eventually making it into a membership.
Yeah. And I have a podcast. So my podcast is called Born to Heal. And I launched the podcast actually before I left Western medicine, and I was just sharing little tips of how to do better with whatever, conventional treatment they were doing. But in February of 2024, so this year, I relaunched the podcast. And so all of my new episodes starting on February 13th are sharing my journey of why I left and what happened to me. And then I started inviting guests on to teach me the things that I didn't learn in medical school that I think that all of us should have learned. And I'm sharing it on my podcast so that other people can learn with me. And exactly what you said about, reaching people. And this was a big thing actually that I heard I forget who said it, but they said, you're not afraid of failing. You're afraid of going out small. And honestly, so if you think about my career, I had come up to the top. I was basically, the powers that be were looking at me for running these very large programs. And so I was well respected. I had that. And then all of a sudden now I'm like starting this little baby practice, and so it's this.
But I bet you feel so good
humbling.
about it.
Yeah, it's humbling. But then I also know that the whole reason why I'm doing this it's not about money. It's not about success. It's not about having a huge following. It's because when I face the end of my life, I want to know that I was authentic and used my gifts in the highest way possible. And so that could just be helping one person, right? And so for me, I've had to come to grips with that. And it was humbling just to be like, okay, who am I? But we're all just here to be our own version of ourselves, and those people who are meant to find us are going to find us when we shine our light in an authentic way. So I love that you had, in some ways that the situation that you had with the TEDx talk was one of those little nudges of like, what I'm saying? Like there's a lesson in everything that we experience. And even when it happens, it's maybe from nefarious causes, right? So there's definitely, I don't deny that, but we can always still learn. It can teach us something about ourselves of what we were attached to.
yeah, is attached to a certain level of success that will do something for you. But if it's not coming from, and it's funny because I've turned down things like voiceovers when I was doing voiceover work, which I still do, but I've turned down voiceovers because I don't align with the brand. Like I would turn down like a £750 job for 1 hour recording because it was L'Oreal who I don't agree. They use carcinogenic products. And I'm like, like I'm just not gonna. So it's funny that so I think really like I've always been in that state of I'm not, I'm not calling in the mainstream. And especially the last 4 years, have taught us even more. It's like, let's weave all this stuff for you and get you to listen. And then we'll tell you another story and you'll listen to that. And it just shows you even more, just like that we're literally like puppets. They're trying to control us. And I'm like, I just don't want to be affiliated with that. So, success or no success, like what does success even mean? And you can go deeper into that when you have these experiences of, I'm not going to sell my soul for, to be on Ted's YouTube. Thank you very much. But, all that aside, what I'm interested in I love finding flaws in medical studies. And I wonder if at the time that you were starting to question stuff, if you kind of started seeing flaws in medical studies that were things that you were following as an oncologist about treatment plans, and if now you're kind of recognizing more where that was, because I do think most medical studies are flawed in some way in terms of like that there's nothing that is concrete. There's always like, if you look at the group of people that they used, in the trial, like they were never all eating the same thing or sleeping the same amount of hours, or there's so many flaws in medical studies. And I just wonder how you feel about that now.
Yeah, well, I think that I haven't paid attention to that piece as much because, with the large randomized trials and stuff, there's a lot of things that are controlled for in there. And so I do look at that when you're looking at smaller studies to just even make sure, are you comparing what you expect to be comparing? But for me, what I started to see was this reductionistic approach of the way science is done in modern medicine is really problematic because you're starting to parse out these little tiny pieces in without considering the whole. And we start going down and we're looking for something new, like a new target. It's always looking for something new that they can target with a new drug. Mm-hmm. And so it's never ending. Honestly, if that's the game that you're playing, there's always something to be looking for. And so for me, it was more just like, we're asking the wrong questions. Mm-hmm. And it's frustrating for me that the stuff that I want to understand, we don't have big studies because there's no money in it. There's like no money in like diet for cancer. Like, so nobody cares, right? And nobody like cares about emotions and cancer because there's not a lot of money to be made in that. And so the whole direction of the research and treatments is just misguided. And so when a new drug comes out, I'm just like, whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like people are all excited and I'm like, you're excited about the wrong thing. Like, and look at like what's happening. I think the biggest thing for me, and this, like I had this awareness in 2017, I was at a yoga retreat with a colleague of mine, and there was a story that was told. It was the parable of the river. And in this story, there's a village that is alongside a river, and one day there's a body, someone's drowning in the river. So the villagers send someone out to rescue this person. They get him off and they, get him to dry land. And then the next day there are two bodies, people floating in the river. And so they rush out and rescue them. And then the next day 4, and then 8. And every day it's just doubling all of these people drowning in the river. So this village gets very organized and they've got this elaborate rescue system and rescue boats and pulleys and all of this stuff. And the village elders are praising them for what an amazing job they're doing on the river. And I turned to my colleague, so she's a GYN oncologist, she's one of my best friends, and I looked at her and I was like, this is Western medicine, and what the hell is happening upstream? And then also not only what is happening upstream to make them sick, but we're putting them back, like we're the glorified rescue workers on the river, and we're just like plucking them out and putting them on the side of the river, but we are not telling them how to stay out. Like this whole system is so messed up. And so I was seeing that people are getting sicker and sicker and younger. Like, if we're doing such a good job in Western medicine, why are we getting sicker and sicker as a society? Mm-hmm. And I think these studies are totally misdirected, and they're not making a dent in what is actually the problem, is that we are sick as a society. And so anyway, I look at the research from that perspective of just like, I think we're asking the wrong questions. And I think that it's never going to be solved because there's not enough money in these other interventions that are basically cheap to deliver, and nobody's going to benefit. And there are a lot of people making a ton of money. And so there's no incentive to change the system. But I will say that I think the system is breaking, and that we're seeing, like, I'm an example of someone leaving. There are a lot of doctors leaving the system. We're going to have a collapse of this system because there's not going to be enough people to provide the care. So I don't know what's going to happen, whether it's going to be, an implosion, or whether there's going to be some, revolution of how medicine is practiced, but I think that's coming.
Even if it's a quiet revolution of people like us just stepping away, and the people, people that we help stepping away and coming to work with us, and others like us, I don't know. There are certainly enough people out there still who won't question it. And that's just the way of the world. And I think I've learned on my spiritual journey, not to get frustrated with that. It's just part of where we're at. And to have compassion for those people as well, like that, it's just where they're at in their journey. It is interesting, you've got all these programs coming. It's almost like an experiment. I feel like it's like a bit of an experiment, as if like the overlords are like, let's put programs out there like Dope Sick and what was that other one, Painkiller, and all these programs showing about the pharmaceutical industry going really, really wrong. And then let's also retract the vaccine that we told everyone they would lose their jobs if they didn't take. And let's see if anyone reacts. And still people aren't reacting. So it's really interesting how this is playing out. I just find that very interesting, like observing. The interesting part about where I'm at now on my spiritual journey is I have no judgment, and it's all from a place of compassion, but it's also from just this place of observation of there's all these things coming at us, telling us this is how it's working. They're not looking after you. And look, they're literally showing you what they've done. But people are like, no, that they were just talking about opioids. My drugs that I'm on are fine. And, it's an interesting time in medicine, I think.
Yeah. Well, and for me, I look at the flip side of that, which are the doctors in the system. And I have a lot of people come to me now and they're like, I just don't trust doctors. And I had no idea that there was such this mistrust for the system until I left. But I have a lot of compassion for the doctors, because just like the population, they've been conditioned into a system of thinking, and I know it because I was that same way. And it wasn't until I was cracked open, and even then it took me like a year before I started to see it. And you have to think about this, is that especially people who are invested in the system, so say someone is taking medications because they're ill, they believe those medications are saving them, or the doctors who their whole life is wrapped up in the system. It would create such cognitive dissonance. And like basically what they would have to do with that information, if they recognized it, would be life-changing. And so I just, and this is interesting because my partner now, I'm like actually so thankful my husband left me, because now I have the most amazing partner that I met through all of this. But he has a heart condition, and he was a professional cyclist and was mentally so strong that he basically put himself in heart failure from overexertion, which is just insane that you can do that. But he's on medications, and for a year, I've been talking to him about how could we maybe lessen, how could we switch you? And he's not ready. And that's okay, and so I'm like, I don't, like, my way's not the right way. And if this is what he needs to do right now for his body. So I have the same feeling that you do. Is like there's no right and wrong. Like I know what's right for me and my body at this point, but that like everyone's on their own path, and that having compassion for where they're at, and then also respecting that. Like everyone has free will. We're all here to make our own choices.
I think like you're coming to it from a place of maturity and being on a spiritual journey. And you know, I used to be super judgmental, you know, because I came at this very young and I didn't have that emotional maturity yet. So I was screaming things from the rooftops, you know, when I realized, when we traced all the pieces back to the arthritis in me being triggered by a vaccine, I was like screaming from the rooftops. It was still from a place of love. It was like telling friends, please don't do this to your kids. Like, don't let what happened to me happen to them. But it was from a very judgy place. It was without compassion. Whereas now, you know, if I have family members that, you know, or friends who are choosing to go down a specific path, I will gently sow seeds and offer my wisdom. But if they don't want it, I will step away and I'll just support them in whatever route they're going down. And that's that, you know, because that we're all on our own journey. And I think that comes with age for sure. It also comes with the spiritual path of understanding that we're truly, when you've gone to places in your spiritual journey, like truly gone and seen things that shows you what we're here for, you can't really have judgment around people, because you understand that everyone's incarnated here at a different point in their journey. And it's just, you know, like I love how Don Javier explains it, in that he's like, if someone, you know, everyone's at a different point in their spiritual evolution, and it's not about condescending anyone or thinking anyone is lesser or higher or lower. But it's like if your child was to just run across the road or do something like stupid because they hadn't learned yet, you wouldn't scream and shout at them and judge them and tell them they're stupid. You'd just you'd have compassion for them. So in the same way, it's, you know, I kind of love that analogy. So one last question I have is, I think people's concern, and rightly so, and this is the biggest conversation, is money when it comes to cancer care, when it comes to healing. So in the States, obviously, you've got the, you know, your healthcare policies that you have, and that entitles you to certain treatments and not others, which is also very, you know, conditioned. And like, we're going to give you this because that's what we want you to do. Now, in the UK, it's kind of the same issue, but presented very differently. We have the National Health Service, the NHS, which is quote unquote free. So, you know, you get anything, you go to the National Health Hospital and they will treat you for free. You don't have to pay a penny. It's coming out of our taxes, obviously. And there are many issues that come with having a free service, like crumbling hospitals and, you know, the rest of it. But with that, how people feel is, well, if I can get the treatment for free here, why am I going to go and pay for something that I have to pay for? I can't afford to do that. And the sad truth is, and my dream has always been to start a charity one day at some point when I can, which I know I will do, where we can subsidize holistic healing protocols for people that can't afford to pay for it. So I guess, sorry, this is a very long-winded question, but we'll just to say, like, how much do you think it costs people to go on a really successful cancer healing journey?
Wow, that's a big question, because the question is, like, I think a lot of people end up wasting their time doing a lot of expensive things that, you know, and you just don't know, especially in the alternative space. It's such a noisy space that the people who are out there, you know, talking the loudest can, you know, attract people. And I have, for example, a client, the one who was on the Heal podcast, she had been seeing this doctor in Southern California who has 2 centers on integrative medicine. She's not an oncologist, but she runs basically an oncology center. And this person spent tens of thousands of dollars on stuff. And like, for example, she had one test done that was, I think it was $4,000, that told her there was no cancer cells. It was supposed to be like detecting cancer years before it would show up. I think it's the RCC study or RCC test. but I'm not 100% sure on that. But basically it showed that she had nothing, like that there was no signs of cancer. And then she literally had a scan a week later and it showed that she had cancer that had spread to her brain.
Oh my gosh.
So, and it's just like, and she was so disillusioned.
It's like, who can you trust?
Yeah, like she just spent so much money. And so I think that's like one of the problems too, right? We have like this, the traditional system that people pay into insurance, and then it's quite expensive even if you have insurance. And then we have on the other side, doctors need to pay to fund these expensive hospitals and stuff that they run, or centers or whatever. And so you can have the money issue come up on both sides and have it not be effective. And so I'm not sure. I definitely think that it's, it's finding the right people for yourself, like what really resonates and feels good, but you're probably going to have to spend money on those people. Like, and this is one of the things that's been interesting for me, because I made a lot of money as a radiation oncologist, and my consult price was, whatever, I don't know, something they think they would charge like $250 for it, but $250 actually was just entering you into a treatment that was going to cost $30,000, like a course of radiation, right? So obviously this is what was supporting my salary, and it's covered by insurance, but still there was some percentage that people would have to pay depending on their plan. But what's interesting now is stepping into this space. It's like, I'm not prescribing any expensive treatments. I'm literally just teaching you how to heal your body. And so then it's this change from exchanging time for money, and people don't understand that it's maybe a little bit more to see me, but I'm not going to then, put you into like some $10,000 treatment to pay for you're literally paying for my expertise and my time. And so one of the things that I encourage people is that if you find the right person for yourself, it's worth investing in working with someone who's not trying to sell you something so they can pay their bills, if that makes sense. So, but I think it can be expensive. And this is one of the reasons why I want to create a membership, is I want to be able to have people do my protocol at a low cost.
Yeah, that's why I've done the membership.
Yeah, people can access that information, and the guidance that they get is, through a group, and they're definitely getting value from that, but it makes it more accessible.
Yeah, I love that. It's just very interesting, isn't it? Because there are so many cancer treatment options. We've got friends, and I have a friend / client whose husband's going through cancer treatment, and they're doing everything. They're throwing everything at a hyperbaric oxygen chamber, like everything they can, and they're getting help from family, and they've been to clinics in Mexico and Germany. And not everyone can obviously do that. So my question for you, I guess, just to end on, is, do you think everyone can heal from cancer? And I know this is a loaded question, but because, there's obviously nuance to it, but is there an opportunity, do you think, based on natural and simple techniques, that pretty much most people can heal from cancer?
Absolutely. I think that Anita Moorjani is such a good example. So Dying to Be Me is her first book. And she had a near-death experience. She died of lymphoma, had, lymph node tumors throughout her body. And when she had that experience during her near-death experience, she realized that she wasn't this body, and that she had created it in her body, and she came back and it all melted away and it was gone. And that's an example of someone who died of their cancer and then it went away. So if that's possible, it's possible for anyone to heal, but I don't know that everyone can heal in their current state. What happened to her was such a profound shift in consciousness from being bathed in these high frequencies, that I think that people need to do things to clear out their bodies and their minds to make that accessible, because I think we block that divine healing, that connection between our higher self and the divine and our physical body. And so I think there are things that need to happen in this physical body to prep you for that kind of healing. And so the work that you do is exactly that, is prepping people to help that happen. And so, yes, it's possible, but no, not everyone is ready to access that because they're so inflamed. We're all so chronically inflamed.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. It's that everyone has the ability to, but not everyone is going to be ready or be, that's not maybe their journey for right now, because they have to want to be shifting into
if
that
they
state.
want it and they want it and they do the work, absolutely it's possible.
Yeah. I've seen
It's
it time and time again with clients, like, autoimmune diseases and all sorts of things. If they want to, and they can do the hard stuff, because a lot of the hard stuff in my work is, pushing people to uncomfortable places that a lot of people don't want to go to. Acknowledging victim consciousness is one of the hardest things for people. It's very triggering, That's one of the most important things I think that I see. Recently, I've noticed that, it's that state of victim consciousness that we don't want to leave. And when we can get really uncomfortable with that, that's one of those things. But anyway, there's many things. Okay, so before we end, we're going to do all about you, our rapid fire round. The first one's always the same. It's wellness is.
Wellness is our divine right.
Where do you see medicine in 30 years?
Consciousness.
Oh, I like these short, snappy, very meaningful answers. What do you believe is one practice everyone could follow to prevent cancer?
Water. So getting your water right, drinking filtered, mineralized, structured water is one of the best things that you could do for your body.
100%. What sort of system do you recommend for people?
Well, I personally just purchased a Spring Aqua Wet 7 system because it's the one system that literally does everything that you need for your water.
Yeah.
And puts like a natural spring under your sink, and also has the addition of hydrogen without electrocuting the water. So a lot of the hydrogen waters are generated by electrolysis, which actually, if you know that water is a living being, we don't want to electrocute it. So the Wet 7, it basically filters the water, mineralizes it, structures it, and adds light all naturally through natural crystals without electricity, and then adds hydrogen. So that's the water system. After doing just hundreds of hours of research, I've purchased myself.
Oh my God, I know. Same. I've been reset water and toothpaste, dental care have been the things I've probably spent the most time researching in the last 10 years. It's just insane. More than 10. It's insane. Yeah, I agree. And I'll put links in the show notes for anyone in the UK who wants a system, who wants to create that, a system like that for their water. Okay, next question. If you could raid the brain of one person and retain all their knowledge, who would it be?
Don Javier.
Same.
I don't know that I could fit it. I definitely know that would not fit in my brain, but that's what I would love.
And also, it's not knowledge, is it? It's knowing. With him,
it's
the difference.
Yeah, well, exactly. He would say, I don't know anything.
Yeah. The true masters are the ones who know that they know nothing. That's what he said. Katie, thank you so much for being here. Tell everyone where they can find you, how they can work with you. I know that you're going to get inundated now with people wanting to work with you.
Sure. So my website is katiedeming.com, and my podcast is Born to Heal. So those are the two best ways that you can find me. And I'm happy I do consults internationally. So it's not limited to people who are in the US. And yeah, I'm happy to connect with anyone.
Amazing. We'll link all your stuff in the show notes as well, and your Instagram, so people can follow the amazing stuff you're doing there. And we're going to do this again in a year, I think, and have a lot of exciting stuff to hear from you. So thank you so much for your gifts. Thank you so much for connecting to them and sharing them with the world, because I just have this kind of vision of you just going in the next 10, 20 years, helping so many people. So thank you.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to speak with you and get to know you better. So I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, Katie. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Reconditioned. I am honestly so grateful to each and every person that tunes in. Thank you also for taking responsibility for your own well-being. You should know that just by choosing to listen to podcasts like this that further your well-being, you're moving more deeply into abundance consciousness. Now, don't forget, I have a bunch of free resources over at laurenvakneen.co.uk, as well as every recommendation you could ever need in regards to your well-being on the LV Recommends page, all categorized for your ease. Thank you also to our sponsors. These episodes would not be possible without them, so make sure to check them out and get some pretty awesome discounts on the show notes. And of course, make sure you're subscribed to the podcast so that you can get updated each time a new one is released. Thank you. I appreciate you.